Welcome to the Ray Amanat Show with the talk of America.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody out in social media land, Facebook land, and of course, TV land. Welcome to the Ray Amanat Show, of which I am your host, Ray Amanat. Thank you for joining us. We have a special three-part series with an interview with martial arts icon John Graden that's basically resides here in Florida, not too far from me. We'll get into his story in a little bit because we got a lot to talk about. We're doing 3 episodes with Mr. Graden. For information about our show, if you'd like to contact me, you can always email me at info@therayamanat.show.com. Send me your likes, your dislikes as far as emails, comments. If you'd like me to read your comments on our next show, just say, please read my comment, but don't use my name, or use my name. That's okay. I'd love to share your comments about our show with our viewers and our listeners. So again, that's info@therayamanat.show.com. I'd like to thank our OBBM network that is hosting us on obbmnetwork.tv. If you go to obbmnetwork.tv and just search for The Ray Amanat Show, you'll be able to catch all of our other previous episodes leading up to this current one today and future episodes coming up. So, again, thank you, obbmnetwork.tv, for syndicating us. You can watch us on Roku, iHeartRadio, and all the other platforms that OBBM is on. Check out obbmnetwork.tv. All right, so let's get into the I'm just saying. It was an honor and a privilege to interview Mr. John Graden, who uh, unknowingly had a large influence, and not only me as a martial arts school owner, but I'm sure thousands of other martial arts school owners in the country. Because he had founded and started up a whole bunch of programs that kind of gave back to all of us and helped us improve our teaching styles and introduce new methods to our students. So let me get into this a little bit. Dun, da, da. So this is a little bit about John Graden. If you see this slide, he's an author of several books. He's been on the cover of several martial arts magazines. He also used to produce his own martial arts magazine, which we'll get into with this interview. So without further ado, let's introduce you to Mr. John Graden. Now, the beginning, this is a pre recorded video. The beginning of this video, I'm an idiot, and you'll kind of see, but let's get it going. Hello, we are at the Black Belt College, or the top,
Level 10 martial arts
level
in Palm
10.
Harbor, Florida.
I'll say it again.
Level 10 martial arts in Palm Harbor, Florida.
Where you and I'm here with Mr. John Graden. To me, this man is a martial arts icon. He created, and we're going to get into depth of what you did, but you created an opportunity for martial arts school owners to meet what I would call martial arts celebrities, people that are the elite of the elite, the June Reeves, the Bill Wallaces, the Joe Lewises, people that were pioneers in martial arts that helped grow it in the United States, even in the film industry. So the things that you've done throughout your career to contribute to martial arts and the growth of martial arts uh, in schools? I always say there's different types of schools. You have your daycare karate school, you have your traditional karate school, then you have your tournament sparring karate schools, your point fighting schools. Then you're getting into your kickboxing, Muay Thai schools, then your MMA schools, and then your self defense schools. And what you created with NATMA and a lot of the other programs that you've done pretty much brought that to the school owners. My instructors only gave me what I can learn, what they knew. And I thought, okay, is that it? They can't teach me anything more. And when I went to your conventions here in Clearwater, it opened my eyes to there is so much more to learn. There's so much out there that I felt like a little fish in a big ocean with a lot of sharks out there, a lot of people that were just so phenomenal at what they do. And I want to personally thank you for doing that,
I
because
appreciate that. Thank you.
it opened my eyes to a whole nother world of martial arts, and gave me the opportunity to seek people out, bring them to my school, and have them train with me and my students,
Mm-hmm.
to give them, my students looked at me and worshiped me and thought I was the blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I humbled myself by bringing in people that were way better than me. And they pretty much beat the shit out of me. And the students were like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But I wanted them to realize that there's so much more out there other than just what I was giving them.
And it puts you in the company of the people that you brought in at that level. So it means that you're humble, that you realize that learning is a lifelong process. And I may not have all the answers, but here's someone who has some really interesting background, stories, skills to share with you.
It's funny because I would teach my students and I would say it, and some of my students would be like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And then Bill Wallace or Joe Lewis would come into my school and do a seminar, and they would say the exact same thing I was saying, only in their own way.
Mhm.
And my students would be like, oh, I get it. And I'm like, I've been saying that to you this whole time.
That's not what you say,
But
it's how you say it.
yeah, the way they put it, it just turned a light switch on.
Mhm.
So you helped give me that opportunity to unlock my students' minds into,
Wonderful.
okay, that there's different ways of explaining things, but it comes around to the same thing as far as you growing and progressing in your martial arts, whether it's a part-time thing that you're doing for a hobby,
Mhm.
or if you turn it and make it a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle for me.
Me too.
So let's get into tell us how things got started for you.
Holy cow. It's interesting. I really believe that people who do martial arts as a living, it's their 100%, that's their focus day and night. They become immersed in the arts. It's typically because at some point they were out of control. They did not have the control of important areas of life. That could be being bullied, being in a violent home environment. It could be maybe something about them. For me, my parents were not teachers, they were screamers. They loved us, but they didn't know how to nurture us and teach us.
I'm
So
right there with you.
if you walk past the napkin and you didn't pick it up, pow, you get hit first and then get yelled at. So it puts you in but if you threw the baseball and it went through the window, that's what boys do. All right, that's funny. It's really
Right.
different. So it's always a minefield. And then in second grade, we were goofing around before class like kids do, and I was on my hands and knees, and this girl jumped off the desk on the back of my head, and bang, my tooth hit the tile and broke in a bunch of pieces. And I pulled up, and the blood was gushing out, and I see little white chunks. And of course, I start crying. They call mom. They get mom there, and I go to an emergency dentist's place, and we're sitting in the lobby or the waiting room, and she's smoking a cigarette and reading a magazine. It's 1968, And I hear the scream of the kid in front of me. He's in there screaming for bloody murder. It's like Little Shop of Horrors. So when I went in, the guy, he kind of put together this little silver cap, and then he took his heel and pushed it on really hard. And I went, pow, he smacked me. And Bob just sitting there. So what happened from there was that I tried to keep my mouth closed as much as I could so people wouldn't see my tooth. My dad would call it snaggletooth. Where's old snaggletooth? You know,
I got one too.
yeah, it's still there. Every couple of years, I'll have a hard piece of candy. I'll pull it off. I have to go to the dentist again and get it on. But I became very quiet, keep my mouth closed, and I would just observe. And that took me out of control. You know, it did not build my confidence. It really robbed me of a lot of confidence. And then in about 4th or 5th or 6th grade, this kid got in my face and started yelling at me. And I felt the blood drain right out of my body. And I was frozen. And when he stopped and I recovered, I thought, wow, this must mean I'm a coward. I hear about cowards in the Western movies with John Wayne that I listen to and watch. And I guess that's what it is. I have to be a coward. What I didn't realize, of course, is you have, freeze, fight, flight. I didn't know that. I was in 6th grade. most adults don't know that either, because in the self-defense classes, we go through that process and we talk about it, and they're aware of fight and flight, but they don't realize that the first thing that may happen to them is they're going to freeze.
Right.
So my confidence level was just shot at that point. And then I was watching Batman and Robin on TV. That Robin was my role model because I was closer in age to the guy, And then the Green Hornet came on, and Kato was Bruce Lee. We didn't know anything about Bruce Lee, but he would kick people through the window. That was cool. So then Dad took us to the first Kung Fu movie, the Kung Fu boom in 1973 or 4. It's called The Five Fingers of Death.
All right.
And it was, even sitting in the theater, I'm thinking, this is really a bad movie, but I want that skill. If these little guys can fight 10 guys and wipe them out and jump from tree to tree and do it, and they broke every rule of fighting, because there was never, you never kick a man when he's down, never hit a man when he's down. What I learned was it's easier to kick him. It was, never hit a man in the groin. No, they didn't just hit him in the groin, they ripped his groin out.
Right.
Hence the 5 fingers of death. So it was, I just thought, wow. So the following Monday, I got the yellow pages out and I started calling all the karate schools in the area. This was in Largo, Florida in 1973. And most of the instructors wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't answer my questions. They were very short on the phone. One guy did, however, engage me with questions and talk to me. And in the newspaper ad, the yellow pages, it said he was the 1970 Kata champion. They go, that's kata, actually. It's pronounced kata. It's an imaginary fight against multiple opponents. So I was the national champion of that. So why don't you come in and watch a class? That was the first hook. That was the way we did it in those days. So my dad and my 2 brothers, younger brothers, we went to watch class. And just like in here in this great school, they have this support poles that are wrapped in foam. Before class, we're sitting in the bleachers watching class, and this about 16-year-old kid walks out. He's a blue belt, and he starts to kick that pad, and the whole building started to shake. I want that power. That's amazing. Wow. So then the instructor came over and explained to my dad that it's $25 a month, and you have to sign a year contract. My father, he got furious. I mean, he didn't just decline.
This is $25 a month back then.
Yes, 1972. Now it's up to $27. But he was really mad, and we got in the car, and I expressed my disappointment, and he smacked me in the head. But about 3 weeks later, my brother and I are outside shooting baskets on the driveway, and the phone rings inside. And it's in the days when you actually answered the phone. Hello? Hi, this is Debbie Bone from the Florida Karate Academy. I'm just calling to see if you're still interested in training with us. Oh, I would love to, but my parents won't pay for it. She says, you sound pretty enthused. Tell you what, you can come in and clean the dojo for your lessons. Really? Yes. I was there the next day, and I was there every day. I was the original wax on, wax off kid. And I immersed myself in that that environment where there's clear hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
The brown and black belts are dressed as Mr. or Miss or Mrs. And class starts with bowing in and bowing out. So you knew the beginning and the middle and the end. So there's that kid that was so out of control and felt no control suddenly started to feel a sense of belonging, learning skills that I thought, because my instructor said these are really important skills to learn, like punching and pulling your hand back to your hip. And when you throw that punch, make sure your chin's up so you have good form. And I was completely in 100%. I used to, in time, I went from being student of the year in ninth grade to missing 53 days in 10th grade because I would get up, act like I'm going to school, but go to the karate school because I had a key because I was cleaning the place up.
Right.
I would take a nap on the bleachers and then start practicing, clean the place up, and I wouldn't leave until 8 or 9 that night. So I was completely immersed in this martial arts world. I mean, instead of I actually sneak karate magazines and put them in my, biology book. So when the teacher says go to this page, I would be reading about Joe Louis winning a tournament
Right.
instead of bacteria or something. And we have a guest. So that was how I got started. It was not so much on the physical side, but it was that I'm gaining control. And then what happened, which is very cool, I went from being that kid that's completely out of control, being bullied, scared, freezing at school. I earned my brown belt and I became Mr. Graden. Whoa, that's huge. Wow, you talk about hooking me in even further.
Right.
And then I still trained like a beast. I wanted to be the best of the best of the best because I thought everything I was learning was so practical and so I was and then I earned my black belt. And then I became an instructor for $5 a class. And then things started to get kind of crazy, and we'll get into that soon, I'm sure.
Right. So, 1986. So after you got your black belt, well, you went from training with Walt Bone. How did you meet with Joe Louis?
Oh, man. On that first night, February 12th, 1974, my dad was driving me to my first white belt class. We stopped to get some gas during wasn't the Jimmy Carter yet gas crisis. But I convinced him to get this magazine off the shelf. It was called Professional Karate Magazine. And he was really into it. So he bought the magazine and I turned it over, I looked at it, and on the back cover was this picture of this blonde, muscular guy flying through the air with his foot cutting through the air. And it just looked like, wow, goodbye Batman, goodbye Superman, goodbye Spider-Man. This is my new hero. This is Joe Louis, movie star handsome, Arnold Schwarzenegger built, and with the karate skills he was, to the time he died, for the most part, most people consider him to be the greatest black belt in history. And what I eventually learned was this guy grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. His dad was a professor. His mom was very intelligent, but there were some issues there. And he saw a karate demo, and he joined the Marines during Vietnam so he could go to Okinawa to learn karate from the masters there. He earned his first black belt in 3 months. And then the instructor tried to make him, tried to embarrass him in the class somehow. And Joe picked the instructor up and threw him across the floor and stormed out. Went to another school and became a black belt there in 4 months. Now, this is interesting because in the general martial arts lexicon here in America, if you get a black belt before 3 years of training, you must be a McDojo.
Right.
McFly. And because Bill Wallace got his black belt in 9 months. All these great heroes never took a year to get it because they were stationed there for 18 months.
Right.
So even if
and they were training every day.
When they could, they had responsibilities. And
Right.
Joe would tell me that if his responsibilities on the base made him miss practice or miss class, he would sneak off in the middle of the night. He would find a closet or a room or just go outside, and he would practice and practice and practice. I mean, he was completely immersed into the martial arts at that time until he came out of the Marines and then moved to Hollywood to become a movie star.
Right.
So that whole process for him, it's particularly interesting because the night that I saw him in that magazine was February 12th, 1974. By February 12th, 1984, 10 years later, Joe Louis had moved to my town, took me under his wing and my brothers as his proteges. I am his youngest, highest rank. Black Belt Magazine has a cover story stating from Joe Louis that John Graden and Jim Graden are his proteges. He's passing the torch to us.
Right.
So to go from that kid, pimply face, snaggletooth kid going to karate, so excited about it, seeing this guy I've never seen before. He's like a superhero to me. And then a decade later, he's living in my condo on the beach, and we become very close. And I just find it to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The sequence of events. The publisher of the magazine, Mike Anderson, had already moved to Tampa Bay because he was friends with my instructor from his time in St. Louis at a school run by a guy named Fred Wren, who was your instructor.
Right.
I mean, so it's crazy. And what happened?
You have no idea.
What happened in St. Louis is that in the very early 70s, there was a 4th of July party at the school. Fred Wren was a very straight-laced guy. He and Mike Anderson ran the schools together. And Walt Bone got caught smoking a marijuana joint at the party, and Wren fired him. So he grabbed his girlfriend, Debbie Bone, 16, 17 years old, and moved to Tampa Bay, Florida, where I lived. And that, within a few months, I made that phone call, after seeing the Kung Fu movie. It's mind-blowing how all this stuff can come together. Yeah. It's just amazing. And, Joe Louis was the one also who convinced me to open my school. At the time, I was teaching at a college. I was a high school dropout who was teaching in an accredited college class. That makes a lot of sense.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, and I was teaching at a rec center. So Joe would meet me at these different locations to spar and train. So one day it would be the Jewish Community Center. The next day it'd be on a basketball court in St. Pete Beach. The next it would be at the college, which was the nicest of all. And eventually he says, John, you need to give your students a home. And that struck me. I never knew anything about making money. I never thought about making money in martial arts, but I knew all about the security because I used to spend the night there. Sometimes I would bring my mom and my brothers to the school, lock the front door, and we'd spend the night on the bleachers because my dad was in a rage. So it made total sense to me. Right. So it's just, that was kind of a long-winded answer to a question, but the sequences are remarkable.
Right. So you opened your school, USA Karate, and then you started getting into. When did you get into? Did you start off as like me? I started off as a point fighter, and then I got into kickboxing. All right, guys. I have to stop it there because this is the end of our segment. I hope you guys are enjoying my interview with Mr. John Graden. I hope you're on the edge of your seat. We're going to continue this story with Mr. Graden on episode 2 on his journey into kickboxing and then into creating the empire that he created within the martial arts world. Let me do some homework here. So we've got all of this information about Mr. Graden. Those of you that are interested in contacting him or learning more about him, you can go to blackbeltcoach.com. Go to matacertification.com if you want to be instructor certified under his organization. You can reach out to him at his phone number, 727-279-0505. The martial arts school that he's affiliated with, he does Empower Kickboxing as well as Mata Martial Arts. And the school that he's affiliated with is Level 10 Martial Arts College, which is the Palm Harbor Karate School in Palm Harbor, Florida. If you can go to their website at tomharborkarate.com and get all the information about their school. They've got children's programs on up, fantastic martial arts school, great teachers. Check them out. That's all I have for now as far as my time. Stay tuned for episode 2 of my interview with Mr. John Graden, and we'll catch you on the next show.
Welcome to the Ray Amanat Show with the talk of America.